Yo, what's up, guys? It's Luca Kassab, and welcome to season 3 of Fresh on Clips. Wow, it's kind of crazy, but NBA just around the corner. It's Monday when I'm filming this. That means tomorrow night we have Celtics versus Knicks and Lakers versus Timberwolves to start off the NBA season. So I know we're a Clipper-based podcast, but today I feel like talking about just NBA standing predictions because I think there are, at least in the West, there are 12, 13 teams that I think could make the playoffs. In the East, it's not as competitive, but I'll still mention it. We're based in the Western Conference, so I'm going to talk about the Clippers side more than the East. I'll drop some hints in the East, but that's about it. So, start with number one, the one seed, 2 years in a row, Oklahoma City's Thunder. This offseason, they added Alex Caruso. They added Isaiah Hardenstein, though he is out for the next month with a left hand fracture. But this is something they've been needing. They need a solid backup center, and that's what they get with Isaiah Hardenstein. They lost Gordon Hayward, Lindy Waters, and Josh Giddey. Of course, they traded Giddey for Caruso. Lindy Waters was in a deal to the Warriors, and Hayward retired. But at the end of the day, they didn't lose anyone significant. Gordon Hayward, good basketball player, happy retirement, one of my guys when I was younger. But he wasn't even playing for him. Lindy Waters wasn't playing for him, and Giddey just did not fit next to SGA. So think they get the one seed. They have another year of experience under their belt. Chet's only going to get better. J Dub's getting better. Isaiah Joe's a great fit, and SGA MVP. Ooh, that's my prediction. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander debatably should have won it last year, but second year in a row being on the number one seed in the Western Conference, he's winning MVP this year. Love how I mentioned Isaiah Joe. He's one of my favorite role players. But you also have their projected starting lineup is SGA, Caruso, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, J Dub, and Chet Holmgren, right? That is a crazy defensive five. Who's scoring on that? Lou Dort and Caruso are both two of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Shea is a solid perimeter defender. J Dub's a great perimeter defender. And you have Chet, who's second right now in DPOY odds on FanDuel, all the betting sites. So their defense is going to be elite, and their offense, don't count them out. Oklahoma City Thunder, number one. Two seed, though I was skeptical of the deals they made all offseason, it is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They added Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, young Rob Dillingham. We'll talk about him in a second. And Joe Ingles. They lost their franchise, Karl Anthony Towns, but that was more so CBA striking again. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Jordan McLaughlin's gone. Shout out Dime Dropper. That's one of his guys. Monte Morris, true point guard, and Kyle Anderson. But they're honestly, I think they're a better basketball team now than they were. I was skeptical of the cat trade. Honestly, I was. But they added so much depth with that deal. This year, they're going to start Conley. It's going to be Conley, Ant, McDaniels, Randall, and Gobert. So basically, they're same five. You're just substituting Randall for Cat, which is a downgrade a little bit. But on the bench, you have Nikhil. You have Dante DiVincenzo, who's him and Nas Reed both can be super six men. So that's eight guys because playoffs you don't go more, and you have Dillingham, but I don't think Dillingham's going to get some postseason minutes. But those first eight are eight guys who I would trust to play in a playoff series. On Dillingham, though, I love the way he plays basketball. He's really shifty, really good shot creator. But I was really skeptical of him, right? I thought the small guard who's relying on shot creation for himself, I thought he was going to struggle. Plus, he was going to be a defensive liability because of his size. But in preseason, he looked pretty good. His shot creation was there. He's still getting to his spots. And defensively, he wasn't as much of a liability as I thought because of the guys he has around him. Gobert, defensive player of the year, 3 times, always in the conversation. Randall's a solid defender. McDaniels, underrated defender, but still an elite defender. And Nas Reed, solid defender. This team, in my opinion, their season really comes down to how much of a difference Randall makes because he's more physical than Cat would be. But offensively, he's just such a ball stopper, in my opinion. Really comes down to will he buy into the Minnesota system and be willing to play off the ball? Is he going to have a year like that All-Star year in New York a couple years ago, All NBA, where he shot 39% from three? That's the big thing. Number two, Minnesota Timberwolves. See, here's number three. And this 3 through 12 range was actually pretty difficult for me. Just because I think that, as I said before, there are a lot of teams in the West with a lot of talent. And it sucks. Two of them are being left out of the playing completely. Number three, I do have the Denver Nuggets, even though I'm fearful of their depth and the lack of it. Look, Mike Malone, top coach in the NBA. That gives me an edge. But the big thing is the guy Jokic. I cannot see a world where Jokic isn't a top three seed in the regular season, even with having a worse roster than he's had the past few years. On additions wise, they added Russ, they added Dario Saric, they added Holmes and Trey Alexander. But Holmes out for the season. Prayers up for him because I was really excited to watch him play. I thought he was going to be a great backup center behind Jokic. But the big losses, well, the big loss was KCP. They also lost Reggie Jackson, Clipper legend, but not, doesn't mean much to him. KCP, on the other hand, he got paid, and he's just an elite two-way basketball player. The guy shot 41% from three last year. He's an all defensive caliber defender. And those are huge shoes to fill for a guy like Christian Brown, my apologies. But Christian Brown's gotten better each year. He was big in their title run. But I don't know. 37% three-point shooter, Christian Brown. Defensively, he's a step down from KCP. That by itself is big, but their bench got worse too. Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Dario Saric, and I guess DeAndre Jordan as a bench five. Obviously, you don't go five deep in the NBA usually, but that's just on paper how it looks. DeAndre Jordan still being in the NBA, being a bench center is crazy to me. But I guess he is serviceable. Saric also can run the five. I like that pickup. Great 3 and D, solid defensively. He's not horrible. Peyton Watson looked good last year, looked better last year, and they're really banking on a Julian Strawther step. I know it's possible. He's a great three-point shooter, so I can see a world where he takes this jump that they're expecting. But wow, that's a gamble. And the Russ fit, it just feels really weird. Russ last year for the Clippers was 4 for 32 in the postseason, shot horribly from three, and he doesn't fit next to other point guards. So him playing with Jamal Murray, for example, and Jokic, all three of them are pretty ball dominant players. I just don't see a world where Russ works next to them because he's not a corner shooter. He's not a great shooter, and his impact is really reliant on having the ball in his hands. He's still a great basketball player, but I feel he needs to be on a team that he can have the ball in his hands. And Mike Malone, he already showed during preseason that there is a tight leash on Westbrook. That last preseason game where they took the rotations more seriously, he played him 8 minutes. He was missing layups left and right. But here's my big thing with Russ that I think could be a positive for the Nuggets team is he is defensively on the same level as a guy like KCP. Maybe a little worse, but him and KCP are very solid defenders, like above average defenders. So I think he can fill that defensive void, but it's offensively, his fit just is not the greatest in my opinion. Then on the other hand, Christian Brown, he fills that three-point shooting void, 38% from three, not terrible, but above league average, but defensively, there's a lot to be desired. And we add on the Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. injury proneness. Jamal Murray, great basketball player, playoff riser, but regular season Jamal Murray sits out a lot of games, doesn't put up the same stats, but he is a postseason riser. And then MPJ just always has the concern of injury, the back surgeries, the knee injury. But I think if they stay healthy, not even if, when they will be a top three seed just because Mike Malone is a top five coach in this league and Nikola Jokic is a top one player in this league. The guy makes everyone around him better. So if you were banking on Strother big year, Jokic being the guy running the ship, that's awesome. That's exactly who you want. Okay. Number three, Denver Nuggets. Number four, 4 and 5. I kept switching this, but number four, I'm gonna give it to the Dallas Mavericks. Coming off of a finals appearance, they I don't think they got better, but I don't think they got worse either. They stayed about the same, right? They added Spencer Dinwiddie, who, no, anywhere else he goes, he can't shoot from three. But when he's with the Mavs, for some reason, he shoots 40% from three. So while it may not be a big addition, big name, I still see the potential there. They added Klay Thompson, Quinn Grimes, Najee Marshall. But the big loss was Derrick Jones Jr. They also lost Tim Hardaway Jr. and they lost Josh Green. But Derrick Jones Jr. was, while he didn't shoot great in the finals, he shot 35% plus from three beforehand. He put Paul George, who's perennial all-star, all-NBA player, he put him in hell in the postseason, keeping him to 18 points a game, below 40% from the field, right? And he played such a substantial role for them. My big criticism with them is that while they added more shot creation and more three-point shooting in a guy like Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall's a good 3 and D. Quinn Grimes, we'll talk about him in a second, but their defense got substantially worse, in my opinion. Who's going to guard their second best player? Because their starting five is projected Luca and Kyrie, two all NBA caliber guys, right? But neither play like a defense. Kyrie actually did lock in the postseason, so I'll give him that, but still average defender at best, right? And then you have Klay Thompson at the three, who in that play-in game, while his shooting was bad, he shot terribly in that playing game, the never-ending 0 for 10 in a playing game, but he also defensively was horrible. He was just falling asleep too much. His on-ball defense is clearly taking a hit, but what do you expect? The guy has had knee surgeries, foot surgeries, Achilles surgeries. The guy obviously was going to take a step back. We knew we weren't going to get prime Clay. PJ Washington, great defender. Gafford, a great defender. And Lively off the bench is a great defender. But I'm still so skeptical of the fact that they have three starting lineup guys. They're 1, 2, and 3 who aren't good defenders because there's so many good ones in the NBA. There's so many good twos. What are they going to do when they play a team like OKC where they have SGA, they have J Dub, right? Both of them shot creators. That's the big thing. But with Clay, is he really going to be guarding team's second best player? A better example is the Sixers. When they play the Sixers, let's say PG, Tyrese, and Embiid all play, you probably throw PJ Washington on Tyrese Maxey. So are you telling me you're throwing Klay Thompson on Paul George? Are you throwing Luca on Paul George? Kyrie on Paul George? Because Gafford and Lively, they're great interior defenders. I have no concern with them. They can guard Embiid. They can guard most centers in the NBA. To an extent, of course. Embiid, Jokic, both unstoppable. But come on. Their perimeter defense is a fear of mine, though their three-point shooting did get better. That's what they needed in the finals. Outside of Luca, no one was hitting in the playoffs. Kyrie fell off in the finals. That's something it's not that big of a deal to me because he looked great throughout the postseason. But that's something that he needs to be he needs to be better in that series for them to even have a chance. Right? Quinn Grimes, that's who I was gonna speak on. Last year, he had a great rookie year. Looked like my Knicks fan friends, they all thought that he was going to be one of those guys who sniper, fringe all-star caliber guy, good shot creator. But then last year, just wasn't there. He got traded to the Pistons. I was hoping that trade would just open up something for him, make him more confident, give him more shots, something. But you know what happened? He fell off, and it was kind of crazy. He shot 14% from three with the Pistons. That is something that he won't be playable with the Mavs if that happens. He's a good defensive player, but if you're shooting 14% from three, you can't play. That's worse than what Westbrook does. So Q Grimes, I'm hoping he figures it out. I love Q Grimes, and he could play a huge role on this team if he does figure it out. Him and Josh Green, very similar talents, in my opinion. So I don't think they lose much there. Another thing that I think hurts them, though, is the Exum wrist surgery. He's out 3 months, and that's a guy who, in the postseason, shot the ball well. And defensively, he is a great defensive player. I never thought Exum was going to come back to the NBA when he left. And you see him come back and be a solid 3-point shooter, but even more so, a clamp is something that's impressive. Last thing on the Mavs, actually, two things. First off, Luca, he's a perennial second place MVP, I guess, because that's where I'm predicting him to be this year. Second place and MVP. Lastly, I think that this Mavs team is really banking on a huge Derek Lively leap. His he's begun to stretch the floor a little bit, but I just think that they need his rookie season. He needs to grow off that. He needs to become a better player because that's a big reliance for them. Okay, so number 4, Dallas Mavericks. Fifth place, I have the Phoenix Suns. This is a team that a lot of people aren't high on, but I'm extremely high on. They added Tyus Jones. That's my guy right there. Anyone who knows me knows Tyus Jones is the MVP of the Luca Kassab All-Stars. Luca Kassab All-Stars are just role players in the NBA who I love. Tyus Jones is a guy who since 2019 I've been saying I want the Clippers to get. 2019. But on top of adding Tyus, they added Monte Morris, another pure one point guard, one of the few pure point guards left. Added Mason Plumlee. Ugh. Ryan Dunn, Ogo Iguodala. I know I just butchered that, but that's the Baylor center, rookie center from last year. And Coach Bud. And I say Coach Bud, but come on, that's a big addition. On the other hand, you lose Drew Eubanks, you lose Eric Gordon, and you lose Coach Vogel. And Vogel versus Bud, both are NBA champions, but they're just very different coaches. I think Bud is more, well, we all know about the Bud effect. Any team he goes to, all of a sudden they're 3-point shooting. They're shooting threes. So watch out for the Nurkic getting threes up. Bud already said it's coming. Nurkic has been working on that 3-point shot. He's going to get a lot up. Look at what Brook Lopez became with Bud. But the difference between Bud and Vogel, in my opinion, is I think Bud's truly a locker room presence. He's respected by a lot of guys in the NBA, whereas I think Vogel's kind of a joke. So, on top of that, by the way, if the Clippers were healthy, this I would have placed them right here, 5 seed. Would have gotten another duel with the Dallas Mavericks in the postseason. But I love the idea of the Suns. I'm going to go back to Tyus Jones, go back to Monte Morris, because the two of them are really guys that I think are going to make a difference for him. Both are true ones. That's the big thing. But Tyus Jones is starting this year. And having a true point guard for both KD and Beal is going to help them a ton. Right? Obviously, it sucks Grayson Allen's going back to the bench after leading the league in 3-point shooting. But that doesn't mean he won't close games. It doesn't mean he's not going to get a ton of PT because honestly, the Suns' depth isn't the greatest. They have Royce O'Neal, they have Grayson Allen, they have Monte Morris, Ryan Dunn's solid, but Grayson Allen's still going to play some heavy minutes. So back on Tyus Jones, though, he's going to make the lives of KD, Booker, and Bradley Beal so much easier. Start with Book. My opinion, top 7 guy in the NBA. One of my favorite players. I can say that now since Paul George is gone, but he's just one of those guys who last year sometimes it felt like he was trying too hard to be a one and make his guys around him better. And at the end of the day, he makes them better by being a scoring threat. That's what opens up opportunities for everyone else. So if his life is going to be easier, not having to bring the ball up every possession, not having to run as if he's what Chris Paul was doing. And I think his game is really going to go. He had a great year last year. I think it's going to take another step up. He's going to get up to that close to 30 points per game range. And his defense is pretty solid. You saw in Team USA, if he had to he bought into a 3-and-D role, something you won't ever see in the NBA, but his defense was so impressive. Let's go to KD, who he played last year. All the talk was on how Bradley Beal missed all these games. KD played 75 games last year. It's the most he's played since before the Warriors era. Think about that. The guy, I just don't think it's sustainable. Especially at his age, there is no way in my mind that he plays 75 games again. And if he does, props out to him. But like we saw last year, an inflation in the amount of games these older guys were playing. PG was above 70. Kawhi was above six. No, PG was above 60. Kawhi above 60. LeBron above 70. Steph almost all 82. Like you got to think that this isn't sustainable. A KD at his age, it's due. He's gonna regress in injuries, and I hope I'm wrong, but it's just something that I see. And Brad Beal, hopefully he stays healthy, but he's kind of the piece that doesn't make much sense for the Suns because he's not good defensively. Offensively, he kind of needs the ball in his hands. He's a score first guy, but I really think having a true point guard next to him is going to open the floor up for him to be more aggressive. But again, it comes down to his health. Now, this is my favorite part of this Suns team. It's Ryan Dunn. This is a guy who I loved coming out of the draft. My four guys in the draft were Devin Carter. It was Devin Carter, Dalton Connect, Jared McCain, and Ryan Dunn. And all four of them ended up in places I liked. But Ryan Dunn, he's just such a promising guy. He's NBA ready. You know, the common trend in the NBA is to not draft these older guys who are NBA ready, but high floor, low ceiling guys. But Ryan Dunn is so promising. He's a good defensive player, but he's even more so a great 3-point shooter. In preseason, shot 44% from three, but he also is putting the ball on the ground. You know, I'm going to highlight that one clip that everyone saw from the Suns preseason when they were playing at Michigan State, where the Tyus Jones offense really became a thing. It was a lot of ball movement. Ryan Dunn, a pump fake into a one dribble pull to end the possession. He looked good. Ryan Dunn looked good, and the offense looked good. But defensively, I'm concerned. Nurkic and Plumlee being your interior defensive unit, your two centers, that's horrible. Nurkic is a horrible interior defender. And don't get me started on Plumlee. Watching him last year was horrible. He made me question why we never get a backup center. And we had Theis there, and Theis isn't a good defensive center either, but he made Plumlee look even worse. All these Suns fans talking about how Plumlee's going to make a huge difference, he's a steal for them. Stop. Plumlee is not a good center anymore. He can give you 10 minutes max because he's not a good interior defender. And offensively, he thinks he's better than what he is. Sit here, watch some of the Clipper games last year. He gets the rebound and he plays as if he's a Magic Johnson trying to push the floor. But no, he isn't. Their interior defense is going to be horrible. They're really booking on Ogo to show that he is NBA ready as well and that he can be plugged in over a Plumlee type of guy. Phoenix Suns, team I'm really high on. I could see them being higher than 5. They're my number 5. And my last playoff spot, this may come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I have the Sacramento Kings. They added DeMar DeRozan this offseason. They added another one of my guys, Devin Carter. Yes, he's out until January, but he's going to make an immediate impact. And they added Jordan McLaughlin. Shout out Dime again. USC too. And their only losses, they lost Davion Mitchell, but Davion Mitchell, while he's a great defensive player, Devin Carter is better, as good, maybe a little worse of a defensive player, but he's so much better offensively. And they lost Harrison Barnes. And you know, everyone's first thought to that was Harrison Barnes is a good 3-and-D guy, but we got to accept that he's not that guy anymore. You know, I was watching Kings games last year. I'll give you the highlight first. The Kings game I was at, HB was getting torched. But that's how it was all year. So we all have to accept that HB is not that defensive player anymore. Offensively, he's still a solid basketball player, but defensively, he is not that guy. DeMar, while he also isn't a good defender, he provides so much more offensively, and he's maybe a slightly worse defender than HB is right now. My big thing with the Kings is they have 3 guys on their team who were top 10 in clutch points per game last year. So they have 3 clutch players in Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, and De'Aaron Fox. They were all top 15 in clutch player of the year voting. They all received a vote of some sort. And the big thing is DeMar DeRozan, the guy, he's second in clutch player of the year last year. He opens up the offense for him. They have good spacing, good defensive play at guard with Keon Ellis and Devin Carter when he gets back. I really like this Kings team. Yes, their defense is still a question to me, but they were 15th 2 years ago in defensive rating. I think they're going to be fine. No, they were 15th last year and 14th the year prior. They will be fine. Sacramento Kings are going to be the 6th seed. I don't like their bench outside of Monk. Herder, Lyles, Alex Len getting minutes for you in this era of basketball isn't ideal, but they'll make it work. Herder had a down year last year, but I trust that he's going to go back to the shooter he was. Lyles actually had a pretty solid year last year. Good 3-point shooting. His defense looked better than usual. And Devin Carter's going to help. Book it on here right now. Devin Carter is going to play a key role in the Kings getting this 6th seed. Okay. Sacramento Kings, last playoff team. Now, this 6, 7, 8, I really swap them nonstop, constantly. But in 7th, I do have the Golden State Warriors. And honestly, another team that didn't really make many changes, but I just have faith. Kyle Anderson came in, Anthony Melton came in, Buddy Hield came in. They lost Clay, they lost CP3, and they lost Dario Saric. But they have so much depth, right? You have a starting lineup: Curry, Pods, Wiggins, Kuminga, and I guess your center is Draymond. Yeah, with a bench unit. So you go from Kayvon Looney starting to Draymond starting. That's an upgrade by itself. Bench unit, you have DeAnthony Melton, you have Buddy Hield, you have Moses Moody, Gary Payton, you have Trace. They have a lot of depth, and that's something that the Clippers have had the last couple years. Same thing with the Lakers, and it really brings a question of who's not going to play. There's going to be nights where GP2 doesn't get minutes, even though he's arguably their best defensive player. Then on the other hand, there's going to be nights Moses Moody doesn't play. So we're going to have to see how this Warriors fan base reacts to it. And I'm curious to see how Steve Kerr plays this because usually he doesn't give these young guys many minutes. So I'm curious what's going to happen with Moody, especially after having this 3-year, $39 million extension. Now, for the actual thing, Warriors talk. Steph Curry, he's no longer a top 5 guy in the NBA, but he is still an elite player. So having him as your one is okay. That second option, it's changing by the day, but I really think that Pods is going to break out this year. I think it's going to be a big leap from Pods. Defensively, charge wise, he draws a ton of charges. He's a solid perimeter defender. And offensively, I think having this offseason to really grow and get better offensively with and just more comfortable with NBA play. I think it's coming. Pods is going to step up from three, and he's going to step up. He's going to be more of a shot creator. You plug a dude like Buddy Hield into this system, replacing Klay Thompson. Honestly, to me, that's an upgrade. Klay was good last year in the second half of the year, but defensively, he was horrible. Throw a guy like Buddy Hield in there, who's a career higher than 40% from three guy, and he looked good defensively in preseason. Obviously, it's preseason, different players, he's guarding different guys, but he looked awesome defensively, and it looked like he took a step up on that aspect because we know he fits the Warriors brand of ball. We know he can come off down screens, get open threes, hit open threes. That's what he does. But if he's playing defense, oh my God. Let's look at DeAnthony Melton too. One of another Luca Kassab all-star, but a more underrated guy. It's a solid one, right? He's a good 3-point shooter, great defender, can run the offense, good downhill. Sixers fans can tell you he's going to be a big time piece for them as well, especially playing next to a guy like Steph as a defensive piece. Last year, a part of the problem with them was they had too much of a reliance on Draymond defensively. So I think that having a guy like Andrew Wiggins, having a guy like DeAnthony Melton, well, first, Wiggins being with them at all times. I know he just lost his father. Prayers to the Wiggins family. But that means the last 2 years he's been away from the team with spending time with his father before his passing, mental health issues, injuries. Hopefully having a healthy Wiggins is going to help the Warriors. Obviously, he's not going to get to that all-star level he was at one point in 2, 3 years ago. But I still think he can make a difference both on both sides of the ball, 3-point shooting wise and defensively. We already talked about Melton's defense, but Kyle Anderson too. That's a good defensive player, and his jumper looked like it sped up a little bit. So I'm excited for that. But Just less reliance on Draymond defensively, I think will be huge for them because they have more pieces around them to play defense. They already had GP2. He's a great defensive player, but you add more on top of that. My last thought on the Warriors came out that they wanted Kuminga, not Kuminga. They wanted Paul George and Larry Markkinen both, right? They wanted to get all three of them with all both of them with Draymond and Curry building a big four, but they went against it, weren't willing to trade Kuminga, pods, etc. But Kuminga last year shot 32.1% from three. And in my opinion, if he really wants to take that leap and if the Warriors want to hit that next step, he needs to raise that 3-point shoot. He was much better in preseason at shooting threes, 45%, but it has to stay consistent because he's been a streaky 3-point shooter throughout. Golden State Warriors are my first playing game at the seventh seed. And I honestly think that fourth, not four, I think 5 through 10, that playing range, 5 through 12 even, they're all going to be within games of each other like what it was last year. The eight seed, this is a team a lot of people are high on. Shout out some of my boys on Twitter, GG Jackson, Arif, but I have the Memphis Grizzlies. And for me, I see all these guys talking about how they're going to reach that level they were at prior to the John Morant suspension, but I just don't see it. Steven Adams being gone is a big loss for them. They traded him last trade deadline, but he's a defensive anchor and he just gets boards. He doesn't have to do much offensively, but he gets a ton of offensive boards. He was league leader the year they were the 2 seed. He was the league leader in offensive rebounds. Defensively, he's an anchor, and I'm just really questionable of their center position. I think Brandon Clark is one of the best backup bigs in basketball, but starting Zach Edey, a rookie Zach Edey, is scary to me. I've seen his preseason. He looked pretty solid. There's a learning curve that comes with Zach Edey. It's really, it's really likely that he's going to start out rough and gradually get better. And I don't think that would be a concern if Jaren was starting the year, but he's out already. Their injuries are a concern to me. They already lost GG Jackson, they've lost Vince Williams Jr., and they've lost Jaren Jackson Jr. Season hasn't even started yet. Are we serious? The injuries are a concern. You have a guy like John Morant who he's fun to watch. He can be a number one on a championship team, in my opinion, but he just doesn't play enough. Last year, he had the whole gun scare. He had the ankle injury, but I just think his play style makes it so much more likely for him to get injured than a guy on the same level like Brunson, for example. Brunson, Halliburton, two point guards who I think are on the same level as John Morant. But it's just scary because he relies so much on his athleticism that it makes it and attacking the rim that it's so much more likely for him to get hurt. And a John Morant injury ruins the season for the Memphis Grizzlies. Wishing Jaren a speedy recovery, Vince Williams Jr., GG Jackson, all guys that I like. They're all, I wish speedy recoveries. I hope they get back sooner rather than later, especially Jaren because Edie's starting. They need that defensive presence that Jaren is next to him. Shout out my guy Desmond Bane and Luke Kennard, another guy who dealt with injuries. Luke Kennard last year missed 40 plus games. His shooting's going to help him, but on Desmond Bane, he took that leap last year that we thought he needed to even keep them and make them a solid, not bottom of the pack team. And they were still a bottom of the pack team. He's an awesome basketball player. But if it gets to a case where Jaw gets hurt and Bane's back to number one, I'd be fearful as a Memphis fan and as a basketball fan. My last point about them, Marcus Smart felt so disinterested in coming off the bench for them. I don't know if I was the only one who got that memo, but he looked out of shape during preseason. He looked like he put on some weight, and he just did not vibe with the team like I thought he would. Keeping Memphis at 8, and I'd be shocked if they were a top 6 seed like all of you are expecting them to be. Now, my number 9 seed, you guys may be thinking, wow, the Clippers haven't been mentioned yet. But I'm trying my very best to be an unbiased NBA fan because obviously I'm a Clippers fan, but I'm also a basketball fan. So I try to think of it like that. But in my number 9 seed, my third playing spot, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. And I know I'm about to catch a lot of heat from Clipper fans and Lakers fans, but the fact is, we're injured, the Lakers aren't. The Lakers, they added Dalton Connect this offseason. They really didn't make many changes. And they added JJ as their coach, and they lost Spencer Dinwiddie, who was horrible for them. Torian Prince, who a very streaky three-point shooter, and Coach Darvin Ham. You know, the big thing to me is JJ coming in is going to be an upgrade over Darvin Ham, unless he plays Bronny, because Braun's really coaching the team. But I just don't think that they got any better. They're the same team they were last year, same starting five. Bench unit's going to look pretty similar. Vanderbilt's already hurt, and that's a big piece to them. It's just weird to me. And a rookie head coach in JJ, who I think can be a great NBA coach, he needs time. He needs to be able to build, grow, learn from mistakes. And being in LA, first off, isn't going to allow that. But also having Braun is a way to ruin your career. If you're coaching Braun and you're not winning, say goodbye to that coaching job. Now, the Lakers last year were 28th in three-point attempts per game. They were a lower end, middle of the pack three-point shooting team, but closer to the bottom than the top. And this year in preseason, they were taking 43 attempts a game from three. And that's JJ Redick basketball. And we've seen the modern basketball, it's become a get more who gets more threes up, who can shoot threes more efficiently. And I think that's going to help with JJ being there. It's going to help them be a better basketball team, but I just don't know how much better. Now on 2020, they had Anthony Davis, and that was probably his best year with them. He was arguably their best player in that bubble championship run. But the big thing was his three-point attempts and his three-point shooting was up a lot from what it is now. So my big thing with them is JJ Redick going to get AD shooting those 4 to 5 threes a game like he did in the bubble at a 30%, 35% clip again? Because if he does that, right, Anthony Davis gets that reliance on the not reliance, but gets that three-point shot back, it makes the Lakers a much better team. Their three-point shooting scares me a little bit. LeBron shot the highest for them last year, but adding a guy like Dalton Connect is big for them. And then adding a dude, well, not adding, but giving Max Christie a bigger role is going to be big for them. I think both of them are going to have pretty big years. Max Christie's a career 38% three-point shooter. He's a good defender. He's a JJ Redick style of player. He can get a high magnitude of threes off. I guarantee you JJ is going to be running plays for him to get open three-point shots. And then Dalton, on the other hand, he's my rookie of the year pick. And I know it sounds crazy because he's on the Lakers. We don't even know if he's going to get PT, but I promise you that if he gets PT, it's coming. He's not going to have the same magnitude of a guy like Zachary Reed-Shea. I think I said that right. Alexander Sarr. But if he does get those minutes, he's going to play a big role. He's so NBA ready. He reminds me of what Hawkes was last year in terms of NBA ready guys. So I really hope JJ gives him a chance, not that other rookie they took at 55. My last thought on the Lakers is their three-point shooting isn't really the best right now. Braun shot the highest he shot on in his career with the highest magnitude as well, which is a good sign. Christie's a good three-point shooter. Connect's a good three-point shooter. D'Lo's an elite three-point shooter. Don't hate. Reeves, we'll see what happens with him. He needs to be more aggressive. I hope JJ preaches that because I like Austin Reeves. AD, we'll see. Jared Vanderbilt is not a good three-point shooter. Gabe Vincent coming back is pretty big for them, but is he going to be? What type of Gabe Vincent are we going to get? A healthy one or not? Kind of gives that Kendrick Nunn when he signed with the Lakers vibe. And I will say though, the five out offense and the way that JJ is going to coach this team is going to help LeBron play downhill, get more assists, be more involved as a guard, as like a point forward, I guess. Los Angeles Lakers, the 9 seed. So my last playing spot really fell between three teams: Houston Rockets, Los Angeles Clippers, and New Orleans Pelicans. Oh, and I know I'm about to lose a lot of support from my own fan base, but put the Houston Rockets. And that pained me to do more than anything. You can see the pain right now. But I just can't back putting the Clippers as a play-in team in an unbiased basketball lens. When Kawhi's out indefinitely, we don't know when he's going to practice. So let's focus on the Houston Rockets, who I did put in the 10 spot. They lost nobody. And they added a guy like Reed Shepard, number 3 overall pick in the draft. He'll come off the bench for them, good scorer. So they just have a lot of depth. They get Tari Eason back, who missed 60 games last year. Amen Thompson's going to be fully healthy. Last year, he got hurt in the first 10 games of the season, missed a good chunk, then came back and clearly did not look healthy. I think he can take a step up. And you just got to think they're a young team. Fred VanVleet's starting at the 1. We know how Fred VanVleet is as a basketball player. Jalen Green got a fat extension, and the dude looked great at the end of the year. 24 point last 20 games since he had his kid, 24.3 points a game, 6.2 boards, 4.3 assists, and the efficiency was up. If we get this Jalen Green, the Rockets become so much more competitive. Dylan Brooks is, as much as we like hating on him, he's a good defensive player. He's a solid 3-point shooter. He's a good 3 and D. And then you have Şengün. Şengün, he's going to jump again. I really think that he's going to take another step like he has the past couple of years. Every year he gets better. 3-point shot's going to be better. Defensively, I hope he looks faster. And he did in preseason. He looked a little bit better, like quicker on his feet. Jabari Smith Jr. is the big guy who I think really needs to take a step up. He was at 14 points a game last year. He needs to be more aggressive because he's a good defensive player. He needs to be more aggressive. And on that bench, like Amen Thompson, I already mentioned. Reed Shepard's a good piece. They have Tari Eason. And they have Steven Adams now. And you heard what I said about him being on Memphis. I just think they're going to take another step up. They were competitive last year when Şengün was healthy. Let's see it happen again. Let's take another step, Rockets. I think this season does come down, though, to if Jalen Green plays the way he did at the end of the year, they're going to make the postseason. They're going to be competitive. But if not, it becomes, okay, well, now there's a bigger reliance on Reed Shepard, Şengün, all of these guys who, yes, they're going to be good. Yes, they'll be good. But Jalen Green, with how much he just got paid, that 5 years over 150 million, he needs to step in and show that he deserves that money. Okay, last playing spot I did give to the Houston Rockets. And this is me banking on upside. This is me trying to be unbiased as a fan. This 11 spot, I put the Los Angeles Clippers. And I obviously, we lost Paul George. We couldn't have gotten better this offseason, but I think we did put damage limitation, getting Mo Bamba, getting Nico Batum, Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr., KPJ. Those Kai Jones is back with us, Cam Christie. Jordan Miller's going to get minutes this year. You'll hear all about that tomorrow on Fresh on Clips. Clippers preview tomorrow, so I'm not going to talk much on us, but we lost PG, we lost both our backup centers, and we lost Russ. PG is a big loss to me, but between Plum and Theis, we're not losing anything. Kai Jones, Mo Bamba, they can play that role at exact similarly enough. Kai Jones looked good in preseason. Mo Bamba can stretch the floor. Russ, his highs were great with us, but his lows were low. So that's, in my opinion, a net. I don't know. I don't think we lost much. My 2 things that I'll mention before just skipping over us is the defense this year is going to be elite. We have a lot of great defensive players between Nico Batum, Zubats, who is the most underrated defensive center in the NBA. Don't forget that. Derek Jones Jr., we talked about him in the Mavs segment. Chris Dunn's an elite defensive player. Terrence Mann. We have a lot of Norm Powell's taking a step up. We have a lot of versatility defensively, and that's something that I think will help us a ton. And Jordan Miller. If Jordan Miller gets PT, we are going to see this star being born. But my big thing is Kawhi being out indefinitely with his knee puts too much of a reliance on the guys like James Harden, Terrence Mann, Norm Powell. And I just don't. James Harden's never missed the playoffs, but I just can't see a world where a Harden-led team can be as good as we want them to be. If Kawhi misses, Kawhi being out indefinitely hurts us a ton. His knee is always a concern. But if he misses more than a third of the season, I really don't see a world that we're going to be as good as a team as we should be, unless defensively we're a top 2-3 defense. Okay, I'm skipping by the Clippers. You'll hear all about it tomorrow. Upload tomorrow because, well, I guess upload Wednesday because I'm post uploading this tomorrow. So number 12, I have the New Orleans Pelicans, and honestly, this is the hardest team to rank. I've seen people putting them in their top 4 to 5 seeds, and I've seen people like myself putting them this low. But to me, they added DeJounte Murray, they added Daniel Theis, they added Javonte Green, they drafted Yves Messi, but they lost Larry Nance Jr., they lost Valanciunas, they lost Dyson Daniels, and they lost Najee Marshall. Larry Nance Jr. does everything that Daniel Theis does better. Daniel Theis is known as a stretch five. Larry Nance is a better three-point shooter. Defensively, Larry Nance is better. He's more athletic. He's a better rebounder. So that's a net loss. Jonas Valanciunas, anyone who watches me consistently knows that this guy is in my nightmares. He plays like Dirk anytime he plays us. Defensively, yes, he's not a good center. But offensively, the guy stretches the floor. He makes life easier for Zion. Dyson Daniels' potential was there, didn't really pan out. A change of scenery is going to help a lot. And Najee Marshall, while he isn't the sexiest name, he's a great 3 and D, and that's a piece that they are going to miss. Realistically, who's starting at the five for them? I've seen reports that it's going to be Herb Jones. As much as I love Herb Jones, I think he is the best perimeter defender in basketball right now. But throwing Herb Jones at the five at 6'5", it's not going to work. You're taking his value as a defensive player away, in my opinion. If not Herb, like even if you run that lineup, okay, if it's not Herb Jones, then it's Zion Williamson running the five. That's just not sustainable in the modern NBA, right? And DeJounte Murray, defensively, everyone claims he's this great defensive player. He looked average as a Hawks defensive player. And don't get me started on his shot selection, right? Their starting lineup is going to be CJ McCollum. It's going to be DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, who is one of my favorite players in the NBA. But he just doesn't really fit with them. Zion and Herb Jones. And if it's not Herb Jones starting at the five, you're starting Daniel Theis. And you know how I feel about Daniel Theis, Clipper fans. Zion and Ingram, their injury concerns, their health, it's a concern to me. So Zion, obviously, his play style is more prone to injury, like John Morant, because he's not a three-point threat. He's always moving downhill. He's playing quickly. Ingram, on the other hand, he just hasn't been healthy since the blood clots occurred. And in my opinion, the big flaw with Ingram's game, with how good of a 3 and D guy he's become, not 3 and D, two-way guy he's become, is he's too reliant on that hezzy pull mid-range, contested mid-range game. He doesn't really attack downhill much. He's not as good of a three-point shooter as he was a couple years ago, and he doesn't get to the rim. So if his hezzy pull mid-ranges contested aren't falling, what are they going to do? Last thing with them is DeJounte Murray. While he is a good defensive player, he needs to step up from what he was. And him and CJ playing next to each other, if we get the DeJounte Murray of the Hawks defensively, I don't know who's picking up if Ingram's hurt. Who's guarding their best player? And if it is Herb Jones, which I hope it is for his defensive value, what are you going to do? Who's guarding the center then? Are you throwing Zion on Embiid? Are you throwing Zion on Bam? I just don't see a world that Zion or Herb Jones fits at the starting five, and their five concerns me. Jose Alvarado off the bench is sick. Same thing with Jordan Hawkins. He has a flamethrower of a three-point shot. But is he going to get minutes? Then you have a guy like Trey Murphy, who I love coming off the bench. I guess Theis is coming off the bench too. I just don't like the depth of this team. I don't like the fit of the team. And Ingram is an odd man out. I guarantee you, if they're not winning games at the deadline, he's getting shipped out. I have the New Orleans Pelicans at 12, and Pelican fans, please don't come after me. If I'm wrong, I will own up to the fact I'm wrong. This is why I do this every single year. Now, 13 seed, my boy Chris Rodriguez, biggest Chris Paul fan, is going to be pissed off at me for saying this, but it is the San Antonio Spurs. They added Chris Paul this offseason. They added Harrison Barnes, drafted Stephon Castle, and they didn't lose much. But in my opinion, adding a guy like Chris Paul next to this team that still has flaws isn't going to help much. Chris Paul does make teams better, but he's not going to make them so much better that they're a play-in team. Chris Paul is my favorite player of all time, but he's not going to do that. And I hope I'm wrong. I love Chris Paul, but he just won't. They're projected right now because Devin Vassell, who is a bucket. I love Devin Vassell. I am a Devin Vassell guy. He's hurt already, and that's been the story of his career. While he's a bucket, he can get you 20 a game, play good defense. He's just never around. He always finds a way to get hurt. Then HB being added, right? So let's, before we even get into that, their projected starting lineup has Champagny starting next to Chris Paul at the guards, unless Stephon Castle starts, which I would love, but I doubt it. With HB at the three, you have you have Jeremy Sohan at the four and Wemby at the five. And we'll talk about Wemby in a second. Trey Jones is coming off the bench, who I love. I think Chris Paul is going to play a very big role on mentoring him to be a better basketball player, like how he did with Shea. Obviously, not to an MVP caliber guy, but I think he'll make Trey Jones a better player because they're both pass first guys. And I think Trey Jones can learn a lot from him. Keldon Johnson's coming off the bench, who I'm big on Keldon Johnson as well, but the guy sometimes doesn't look like he's giving much effort, and he's just become a six man on this squad. They still have Zach Collins, who I like as a backup center. I don't like him as a basketball player. I don't like him as a person, but he is a serviceable backup center in this NBA. And now let's talk about HB. This guy, HB, we already talked about it for the Kings. Offensively, he's an average guy, whatever. Defensively, this is what people say he's known for. His defense, he is not a good defensive player anymore. So all of these Spurs fans who are saying, "Oh, well, our defense is going to be elite because we have a guy like Wemby manning the middle." Yeah, Wemby's a great defensive player, but your perimeter defense isn't going to be as good as you think. Jeremy Sohan's a solid defender. Chris Paul's old. His defense is still okay, but he's older. He's slower. He's more reliant on the flopping than he ever has been. Trey Jones isn't a good defender. Devin Vassell, while he's a good defender, is hurt. Champagne's okay. HB is a god awful defender. And now we're going to have to see him try to guard some of the best guys on the opposing teams. I do think the Spurs will be competitive, but I don't think they're going to be as good as these Chris Paul fans are saying or as they themselves are thinking. My last thought on Wemby, I have to talk about Wemby. You know, he was ranked number 11th by ESPN in the best players. That is not going to happen. There are right now at least 20 players better than Wembanyama. You heard it from me, and I like Wembanyama. Defensively, he's elite. If he wins Depoy, I would not be surprised. His stocks are crazy. Stocks is in steals, blocks. He's an awesome rim protector, good defensive player. He's an elite defensive player. Good as I apologize to Wembanyama, but his perimeter defense is good. But on the offensive side of the ball, he reminds me of like a KD prototype. One of those knockoff like KD guys. Loads of hezzy pulls, loads of contested threes where he only shot 31.8% from three last year. So you put that on top of that, it's not a recipe for success. I think teams are going to live with him shooting the 3-point shot. I think they're going to be better. I think they'll be competitive, maybe a few games out of the play-in, but I don't think they'll get there. Hopefully a Wembanyama jump. I'm really excited to watch Stephon Castle play. I liked him at UConn. I think his defense is a big thing, but I'm just a little concerned for the Spurs. Hopefully Chris Rodriguez, your idol Chris Paul, does not fail us and makes the Spurs look even a little bit better. Just keep them in contention. Okay, these last two teams are the two teams that I think have no chance at all. It's the Portland Trail Blazers and the Utah Jazz. They're 14 and 15. The Blazers I have in 14. I like Chauncey as a coach. I think the Denny Avdia pick was a big time move. Not pick, trade was a big time move. And it's already said by Chauncey that he's their best player. So are we about to see a number one option, Denny Avdia, jump? I love him defensively. His offensive game has improved every season. I'm excited to see what Avdia can do. And then Scoot Henderson had a rough rookie start to his rookie year. He was pretty solid to end the year. You know, people won't ever say it, but he was. I think he'll take a step up. I think Shaden Sharp, though he's hurt right now, he is a stud. He'll average 20 plus a game. He's going to be solid. Anthony Simons is a good player. Hopefully, I pray that they ship him off by the trade deadline because he's such a good basketball player and he could be used on a contending team. Then Robert Williams, same thing. Klingon's on that team now. Aiton, there's a lot of centers on that team. And Duop Reed, they have four guys who could play center minutes. I think it's going to be Aiden starting. I hope Klingon gets the backup role. Rob Williams, I hope, gets traded because he is a stud center who a contending team could use. And that's all I have there. Chris Murray hopefully takes a step up. I would love to see Jeremy Grant also get shipped, but his money's too much. They're going to be better than the Jazz, but they're going to be one of the worst teams. They're going to be in that Dylan Harper, Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, that range of guys. Then 15, the Utah Jazz. I don't have much to say on them. They added Drew Eubanks. They drafted Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier. They lost Chris Dunn to us. Chris Dunn, great defensive player. We already mentioned that. Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier both seem like project guys in this NBA. All I have to say is I hope Collier gets PT. I love the kid. USC legend right there. Not legend, but USC guy right there. Cody Williams. He's going to be a backup to start, but I could see a world where if they suck, they'll listen to calls about Laurie Markkinen. Oh, they can't even trade Laurie this year, actually. So he's going to be a backup unless they trade a guy like John Collins, for example, a Sexton to open up a spot for him. Hopefully, Keontae George takes a jump too. I like his game. He just needs to be more efficient. But the Jazz are going to be 15th. Hopefully, they're the team that gets Cooper Flag. One thing I forgot to mention about the Rockets Clippers situation is I see a ton of people saying that the Clippers are going to give the Thunder Cooper Flag, but they don't understand that if we're better than the Rockets, our pick doesn't go to the Thunder. They get the Rockets pick because they're worse than us. Right, so let's go through it one more time. OKC at 1. We have Minnesota at 2, Denver at 3, Dallas at 4, Phoenix at 5, Sacramento at 6 as our true playoff teams. And Golden State at 7, Memphis at 8, Los Angeles Lakers at 9, Houston Rockets at 10, Los Angeles Clippers at 11. My heart hurts to say that, but it's what it is. New Orleans Pelicans at 12, San Antonio Spurs at 13, Portland Trailblazers 14, Utah Jazz 15. I'm waiting. These comments are going to be opposing fans telling me that I'm an idiot for not believing in their team. Now, let's jump to the East. As I said before, I'm not going to speak much on them on the East, as much on the East as the West, but Boston's won. Still the best roster in basketball, and they got better this offseason. 2 through 5, I think is 2 through 6 is interchangeable in my opinion. But I have the New York Knicks at 2. Shout out Ben Altman, big Knicks fan. He kind of convinced me, but their injuries are already starting. I'm a little concerned over Mikal Bridges' jump shot change, but they have the best roster of the other 14 teams in the East, so I'm banking on the talent. Yes, losing DiVincenzo and Randall was a big thing, but I didn't like the Randall fit next to Brunson anyways. I'm bummed out about DiVincenzo, but it's clear he wanted out of there. So starting lineup of Brunson, Mikal Bridges, I don't even know. Is Josh Hart going to start? Because it's OG Anunoby, Cat, and I guess Mitch Rob. But Mitch Rob is hurt to start the year, so it will be Cat and probably Josh Hart. With Deuce McBride still coming off the bench is someone I love. Precious Achiuwa's hurt right now, so we can't really say him, but we'll put the Knicks at 2. Milwaukee's at 3. Giannis and Lillard, while they may not have meshed the same way, and Middleton's hurt right now to begin with, Doc Rivers-led team is a good regular season team. Giannis, I like Jokic. I can't pull myself putting Giannis lower than a 3 seed. So the Bucks are at 3. At 4, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, honestly, I could see them being as low as a play-in team, and I can see them as high as 2. But it all comes down to DG the PG, one of my favorite players, playing next to Donovan Mitchell. Their defensive fit is not it. They don't play well together. So if they're lower, it makes sense because DG and D Mitch don't work together. But then on the other hand, you also have Allen and Mobley, and Mobley's looked like he could stretch the floor a little more this year. So if they don't work, I could see it being because Mobley and Allen don't work together. But if they do, if everything clicks, I can see Cleveland being as high as 2. 5 seed, we have Philly. While I think Philly is probably the third best roster in the East, I just don't. Their injuries already concern me. Paul George and Embiid are both already hurt. They're playing their first game without their two of their 3 best players. Tyrese Maxey is a stud, and I know he can get them wins, but the Embiid no back-to-backs. They have 16 back-to-backs this year. So that means 8 games Embiid's confirmed sitting out. I guarantee you PG is going to sit some of the back-to-backs because of this knee injury. it really comes down to how quickly are Embiid and PG going to come back because this first game, they're probably looking at a starting lineup of Maxey, Kyle Lowry, Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, or Eric Gordon, I guess, if they go small and Drummond. And that's just something that I don't really see working if that's how it is for a substantial period of time. Last year they were 37-8 with Joel Embiid. Says enough. Okay, six seed, Indiana Pacers, baby. It's my second favorite team in the NBA. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I love their team. They have a team of Luca Kassab All-Stars. I think having this playoff experience, that playoff run is going to be do big wonders for them. It's going to make them a better basketball team. The experience is going to help Tyrese, Siakam, getting Benedict Mathurin back as a bench piece is going to be awesome. I'm excited for the Pacers season. Number seven, we have the Michigan Magic. I mean, the Orlando Magic. Paolo's going to take another step, in my opinion. He's going to go from an all-star caliber player to that superstar caliber player. I think Franz is going to take a step. Jalen Suggs is about to get a big extension. His defense, they're a good defensive team. And KCP, as we said with the Nuggets, that's a good defensive player to add 3 and D. They don't have many flaws defensively, and that's why I like the Magic this much. Number eight, Miami Heat. You guys know how it is. Heat culture. It's all relying on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has a chip on his shoulder. So if this guy is healthy and plays the way that I expect him to play with playing all the preseason games, how fired up he seems, I can see them being way higher. Same thing with Bam being a stretch big now, but I just can't with the injury history that they have. I don't see it. And Spo being the best coach also plays a role in this. I expect Jimmy to miss some time. We know it's going to happen, but I like their roster. I think that they have a lot of talent, but it's another one of those teams where it's like, who are they not going to play? So we'll see. Terry Rozier also wasn't the greatest for them last season after being acquired. So we'll see how that works. But Miami Heat at eight. Number nine, I have the Atlanta Hawks. This is where I think the Eastern Conference falls off. 9 through 15 are pretty not great teams, but the Hawks at nine, Trae Young led team. I think that's going to play a big role, but they're just not that good of a basketball team. Onyeka Okongwu coming back's big. I think Zachary Ricochet is going to play a big role for them. I'm excited to see him play because I wasn't really high on him. I didn't like the picking him first overall in this draft, but number nine, Atlanta Hawks. And then the 10 seed, I have the Charlotte Hornets. I'm really high on the Hornets, but that banks on LaMelo Ball being healthy. Brandon Miller's going to take that step that we want. Miles Bridges, as much as I don't like him as a person, he's a good basketball player. Mark Williams stays healthy. That is a good piece. I love Nick Richards. That's another Luca Kassab All-Star. The rookie they drafted is more of a project player, but I can see him being solid. Trey Mann coming off the bench, he's looked really good, 16 points per game in preseason. He kind of reminds me of like an Allen Iverson Walmart version, which is maybe disrespectful to AI. You guys let me know down below, but Charlotte Hornets, 10, all reliant on LaMelo and Mark Williams staying healthy. 11, I have the Chicago Bulls. Shout out Lonzo, by the way. I'm really excited to see him playing regular season games again. One of my favorite players, UCLA guy. But they're just not. I think they'll be better than people expect them to be, but I just don't see them being a playing team. They have a lot of good guards though, between Giddey, Levine, Lonzo, Ayo Dosunmu. I like them. Matis is a project of a draft pick, but I think he'll be pretty solid. Voos hopefully gets traded at some point. I don't see it, but they're just like solid grouping of talent, but not much more. Then 12th seed, I have the Toronto Raptors. Jakob Poeltl, Masiri. They have all set. I think I just butchered their GM's name, but Asai something. They've already said they're in a rebuilding phase. Grady Dick has looked good, which I like. RJ Barrett's looked good. Scotty's going to have a monster year. IQ's going to continue to grow as a starting point guard in this league. Another one of my favorite guys. I just think that they know they're rebuilding. It's going to be a lot of youth development, which I like. I think give it a year or two and they'll be a lot better of a team. 13, 14, 15, Pistons, Wizards, Nets. Pistons aren't going to be as bad as they were last year. They're my 13 seed, but they are not going, in my opinion, I don't think they're going to be much better. They're going to be better, but they're not going to be on that play-in level that some people expect them to be. I think Ivy's going to have a big year. I think that him with Bickerstaff and not having to sit behind Killian Hayes is helping him a lot. Ron Holland's an interesting rookie. I like Jalen Duren a lot, but if Cade gets hurt, this team is going to be as bad as they were last year. They can't sustain a Cade injury. 14 and 15 interchangeable, Washington and New York, and Brooklyn, not New York, Brooklyn Nets. Shout out the Liberty actually for winning the WNBA championship as well. But with Washington, it's just not a good roster. Alex Sarr is going to get a lot of opportunity. Jordan Poole, Chuck Fest on the way. They did make that Sadiq Bey signing, which could be a good trade piece, even though he's not going to play this year. But I'm just not high on them. Then 15, Brooklyn. It's a clear rebuild. Hopefully they get rid of Cam Johnson. They get rid of DFS, but I doubt it. And they're trying to get Cooper Flag. And that would be a big time. I think Cam Thomas is going to have a big year. Can't wait for that 25 points per game, but Claxton, Cam Thomas, that's about it. Cam Johnson hopefully gets moved. I already said DFS gets moved, but I just don't think the Brooklyn Nets are that good. Okay, to reiterate the Eastern Conference, Boston Celtics, New York Knicks, Milwaukee Bucks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Philadelphia 76ers, Indiana Pacers, playoffs. Play-in Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, Atlanta Hawks, Charlotte Hornets. And right outside are the Chicago Bulls, Toronto Raptors at 11 and 12. Then Pistons, Wizards, Nets round out the East, a substantial distance from the play. Fan bases, please do not attack me because the Western Conference is hard to predict. The Eastern top 8 is hard to predict. And I hope I'm wrong on the Clippers one. I really do. If you want to know my full thoughts on the Clippers, you'll hear about it tomorrow. New episode coming tomorrow about the Clippers and their season outlook. But let me know down below what you guys think. And let's go Clippers. NBA season starts. Let's go. Peace.
Clippers bring it in. 5 seconds to go. Tie game. Seatbelts are fastened. Lou Williams for the win. Bingo!
Oh my goodness.
God, he got it! 1 second left. Clippers by 2.
The three for the tie. Oh my goodness! I don't